Secretary Janet Yellen announced the U.S. could default on its $31.4 trillion in debt as soon as June 1st. And as the White House and House Speaker McCarthy, a Republican, are deadlocked on lifting the government's borrowing authority. President Biden has called on an increase to the debt limit without conditions, while Republicans are calling for spending cuts. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
And some 200 law enforcement officers are searching for the man accused of killing his 5 neighbors in Texas on Friday.
Immigration officials tell Fox the man wanted for multiple murders was in the U.S. illegally. 38-year-old Francisco Orpeza. ICE says he has been deported at least 4 times previously, and now he's vanished.
Fox's Casey Stekel. America's listening to Fox News.
Express yourself into the groove. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusatani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
Tunay na kaibigan at handa para sa inyo. Ang bangko ng kinabukasan, laging maaasahan. And Pacific, where others cut branches, we place roots.
Good trust.
Yet another balloon is spotted over U.S. territory.
The Defense Department's revealing the latest unmanned balloon was spotted off Hawaii's coast April 28th at about 36,000 feet. And even though that's an altitude used by civil aviation, the Pentagon says it's not believed to be a threat to civilians in the air or on the ground. They also don't know who owns this one, and there's no indication that it's being controlled by a foreign actor. So the Defense Secretary decided against taking any action. It has since left Hawaiian airspace. Back in February, what's believed to be a Chinese surveillance balloon was shot down off the coast of South Carolina. Jill Nato, Fox News.
A Fox poll shows that Americans' opinions on artificial intelligence depend largely on how much they know about it.
According to the poll, more people, 46%, who know about AI feel it's a good thing. When you put them together with those not so familiar with it, 46% feel it's a bad thing, opposed to 38% saying it is good. Drilling down to who it is that has a working AI knowledge, it's mostly men, a majority of them college educated, and the biggest majority, 65%, under the age of 45, where there is agreement across the board among the knowledgeable, the unfamiliar, and emerging of those groups, is more than 70% of each say it's important for the government to regulate it. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
This is the man known as the godfather of AI, quits his job at Google. Jeffrey Hinton said he left so he could speak openly about the dangers of the technology. The Federal Reserve is set to raise interest rates likely by 1/4 percentage point on Wednesday. Stocks fell slightly Monday after federal regulators seized First Republic Bank and sold it to J.P. Morgan Chase. The Dow lost 47 points. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's a great way to start a Tuesday, isn't it, Jose?
I look forward to it every day.
It's a great way to start a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Neither one of our daily newspapers want to play the game anymore.
Right?
It's been about 5 months since the Post ran an editorial. The Daily News now, I think, is 3 days, no editorial. Yes.
It's a blog.
Yeah. They don't publish on paper anymore, so they're no longer a newspaper in it. And, you know, the essential element of a newspaper is an editorial. If you wanted the real spice, if I can mix some metaphors here, that would distinguish one newspaper from the
others in periodicals, magazines.
Yeah.
The Pacific Island Times does that.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to set the tone for the rest of the paper, the rag.
Become a minimalist. The least they can do.
An aggregator.
Yeah, and that's about it. But fortunately, I do consider going to work for the Daily News as an editorial writer. In the meantime, maybe he could get a side gig down in Region Marianas. Aston, Guam, May 1, 2023. On Thursday, April 27, we witnessed Democracy 12-37. The introduction of this new legislation effectively stopped a potential lease of federal land, democracy, and have no issue with the outcome of the proceedings. However, there was quite a bit of incorrect information stated publicly. Undertake. Starting out, civilian hospital. The proposed lease was intended for a civilian hospital which are sent to Guam civilian medical facilities 4,000 times each year on average, mainly across the country. Next subject, shared patient care. Military doctors and nurses are very thankful that there were Navy doctors out there moonlighting, Jose, because if it had not been for that, there wouldn't have been any who have no affiliation with the military. It's common for civilian patients to be brought to naval. The quality of the patient. A new civilian hospital would be for the people of Guam and every patient who calls this region home. And was taken to Naval Hospital. And the guy's a civilian, but the Naval Hospital was the closest. They hauled him there. Modern medical capabilities. These were, first, a hyperbaric compression chamber, a hyperbaric tourism. The Navy will always maintain hyperbaric chambers in Guam for diving injuries. However, diving injuries are crushing injuries and infections. Next item, inpatient hemodialysis capability. Continuous renal displacement theory is used during trauma situations to prevent induced coma. And some parts of the body are shut down to further the service. Well, I can see where dialysis, cardiac catheterization. This method is used by interventional radiologists to treat internal injuries. Next item, inpatient rehabilitation capability with services to include inpatient physical care in a hospital setting greatly increases chances for full recovery of patients who are recovering from trauma. Next item, pediatric intensive care unit. Pediatric intensive care is essential for high-level care for our most vulnerable. Intensive care across Guam are evident. Staff from one facility travel to another due to the lack. Every one of these things I could see where benefit the military and would have benefited us every bit as much. It's surprising to provide capabilities with this distance requirement in mind. First of all, area capable of accommodating. Tents were set up adjacent to Guam Memorial Hospital, but limited in number due to the lack of dedicated space. This highlighted the need field, probably an open field that's plumbed, wired, etc., where you come in and set up your tents sometime since mass casualty event has happened in Guam. However, being properly prepared is essential, especially on an island where transport emergency room capacity here, Jose. Next item, V-22 and H-53 Cable Guard UH-72 Lakota. These aircraft rescue personnel and transport patients throughout the Marianas, like the Marine CH-53 Stallion and the MV-22 Osprey, will be speed could transport 10 litter patients to Guam in less than half the time it takes to transport a single patient today. The need for a heli is built. I hope it will include the above listed commonplace medical capability set. Should make that hospital has every item in that checklist. Now, the lease that but of course it wasn't to be. And I joined everybody else who said even it was a good deal, even given the 100-acre lease that the Admiral was proffering. So if we could get that same deal, either in cash or the accumulated value of in-kind consideration. The original lease was no cost in exchange for fencing the version of the lease in order to address the concerns of the Attorney General. So the lease as written was just under $138,000 with approximately 830 hospital beds on island reserve beds now than we did 30-some years ago. Today, with the population near 170,000, our top priority. This is far below regional and U.S. averages. For comparison, beds per 1,000 people for Japan is land transfer. In 2011, the Undersecretary of the Navy committed to we will better utilize the lands we currently have and return underutilized land to the government of Guam, and 6,225 acres of submerged DOD land currently in the transfer process. Government of Guam in planning and development of a plot of land commonly referred to as Eagles Field for a civilian medical complex. Land will be developed to support other defense mission requirements. While the fate of the league was to advocate for a grant to pay for construction of a new public hospital in Guam, for grant funding regardless of where a hospital is built. Wow. Language. And vice here means instead of. It's a good word. Vice commenting on collaboration and communication. We will continue to work with the government of Guam to be good partners ourselves to badmouth the Admiral, didn't we? Yeah.
I'm still not understanding why the rhetoric is
come close to anything like this.
Nothing like this.
And then, still hasn't.
And then the big thing I take away from this, however, we remain committed to advocate for the grant.
A few things working for us. We've got the international world situation, geopolitics, an admiral who is apparently sensitive to if somebody rode in on a brand new white stallion, you know what the members of the legislature would want? And to the extent that I have that ability, I apologize for the raw comments the baseless comments. Obviously, we start out with systemic racism, and I'm not going to take them in this order, but this is what's on the... We've got the GVB versus the Carl, and we've got the governor versus Blas. I suppose it should be the governor versus fiscal. Spent a fair amount of time on systemic racism. The rice, yeah, let's take a short break.
Ireland is our home. Through the years we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Express yourself into the groove. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusatani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Yeah, yesterday I went into systemic racism in some depth, so I don't need to dwell on it today. But you can see the rice is orange. The narrative says it's red. And I kind of think we could take the narrative of the governor, the admiral. I notice a couple of folks on Facebook agree with me. You know, the governor would encourage criticism of the admiral to take some of the heat off herself.
Her silence is telling us that.
It is. When he comes out and lays it all out, and was treated by our public officials, he's saying, I'm still going to go to bat for you guys. Well, I'm going to go to the governor versus fiscal integrity. And I start out with a tape. The executive and judicial branches of the government have both been able to pay new general pay plan rates to mandated in Public Law 37-3 that the implementation of the act, including its appropriation of funds for bonus from the prior administration and another round of grants under Local Employers Assistance Program, that means the LEAP, were Foss Jr. The amendment was made despite the fact that the LEAP program, which is a government subsidy, including those at DOE. Unfortunately, these restrictions have mired the process in more unnecessary bureaucratic red tape, ultimately hurting. And of course, you always have to throw this in when you talk about GovGuam employees. Ultimately hurting the good, hardworking, right?
What about the marginalized, barely working people at DOE?
The ones that get fired, right? Required by Section 10 of Public Law. That's the Blas Amendment, which will permit allotted funds to be transferred to DOE as we work with DOE on implementing their new pay scales. Now, there's enough for almost a whole tall tale. DOE got the raises for the pay period that ended April 22. So if it ended April 22, that means it started 14 days earlier than that. It would have started April 8th, right? The Director of Administration is working to supply those plans. I'm going to introduce Law and Order notebooks here, Jose. As part of the continuing legal education part of this show, I'm going to introduce another term, condition precedent. Condition precedent. I think you know what the word condition means. I'll let you go to the movies tonight, Junior. He gets to go to the movies, but there's a condition precedent, and that is he's got to take out the trash. If he doesn't take the trash out, he can't go to the movies. That's a stated a condition precedent. you can pay the 22% raises, but before that, so you don't have to do it. Just show us your plans for salary increment, merit bonuses, the leap, etc., an executive function when it comes to appropriation. But it's also clear that a condition precedent that doesn't do that is enforceable, and violation of that condition precedent is a violation of the law. So how is it that the governor was able to pay the rest of the government but not the Department of Education? Maybe she's getting even with Judy Wonpat for the great salary smash and grab in the 32nd Guam legislature. I'm sorry, Judy Wonpat 10. Yeah. Now, that's the first thing that jumps out and grabs me here. The second thing that jumps out is this. Frank Blas, who is the author of the Frank Blas Amendment, Section 10, wrote a letter. Now, it was Frank Blas, not Jimmy Moylan. Frank Blas wrote a letter to every certifying officer pointing out that condition precedent and reminding them that if you certify funds and it's against the law, you could be going to a criminal trial and you might have to pay the money back. So did certifying officers get these letters and say, we don't need no Frank Blas amendment around here. Where's my pen? I'll certify these funds. Or did they get advice of counsel saying that it's all can't read? Did they not read Frank Blas's letter? Or was Frank Blas incorrect? There's an answer to these questions. And of course, this release puts that ball right back in Frank Blas's court. Frank, you told them they couldn't do it. It looks like they did it. What next? And then we have a public auditor and we have an attorney general. And our attorney general says he's going to be a corruption fighter. He's going to take after white-collar crime. And our public auditor's already shown that he'd do that. Unfortunately, the other hash of the latch-up didn't do it because, after all, he was leaving in January. But this could be, and that money was paid out, then there should be some items in the police blotter that would be noteworthy. If not, and the governor, I mean, ordinarily it's a little difficult to find public corruption because ordinarily governors, if anybody knows the Stringer Bell rule, it's the governors. It's public officials that want to engage in criminal. You don't reduce a criminal conspiracy to writing. But here's the governor in her confession. She says the executive and judicial branches of the government, here's another certifying officer at the courts certify. It really gets sticky then, doesn't it? If Doug has to prosecute the certifying officer at the judicial branch. But here's the confession. The executive and judicial branches of the government of Guam have both been able to pay new general pay plan rates to all employees for the pay period that ended April 22. Now, if Frank Blas is right, those certifying officers all broke the law. Here's all the evidence you need of the governor's press release. So, BJ, Doug, Frank Blas Jr., I should be able to keep this on the card tomorrow because there ought to be something in tomorrow's paper. Now, the governor just seems to have a difficult time getting all of this right, doesn't she?
Difficult or intentional?
Yeah, well, yeah, perhaps she's, which is really scary.
I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but she came from a financial institution.
Yeah, hope you could bank on, Jose. Where's that drum roll?
This one.
Yeah, there. Yeah, So yesterday I went into this article. 120 Adelup employees received $419,655. To me, sounds like corruption. And I explained how employees only cash in their lump sum leave settle next day. One of them, the governor's chief of staff, John Jr. Calvo, was able to resign on December 31, be rehired on December 1st at a $20,000 increase of the salary he resigned at, and he pocketed a lump sum check of $11,874.10. The governor's chief of staff. Crystal Paco was able to ride that same gravy train for the lump sum payment. So, public auditor, B.J. Cruz, front and center. Looks to me like you got your work cut out for you right here. Next item I'm going to pick up is the GVB versus the Carl. And you'll remember I picked this up in the notices of meetings where the next meeting of the GVB is tomorrow. And on the, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong agenda here. I don't have the right agenda. Anyhow, I did read it the other day. I've got another really interesting one that I'll cover right after this. But what they did was they put out job announcements for the general manager and counsel for GVB. And now here's Troy comes along, and thank God for Troy. Where would we be if we didn't have Troy, Jose? You know?
In the dark.
We would be in the dark. And with respect to the media cartel, you know, they have these little pen lights about the size of my pen. Troy has got this great big lantern with a lens on it about this big around. That little pen light goes about 10 feet ahead of the whole person who's holding it when it's dark. You know, with Troy, if there are clouds, it'll shine on the clouds. He really gets in there. Good for rid of Governor Gutierrez and the pesky law firm, him investigate corruption at Guam Visitors Bureau. The GVB staff, well aware of the power of Powerplex at play, has known for years about the innate ethical quagmire of its board of directors' anonymity. Two reasons for a condition of anonymity, Jose. First of all, they don't want to be retaliated against. And second, we all know that for some odd reason, the anonymous source has far more credibility on our island than someone who actually puts his name forward. I don't know why. It came from an anonymous source.
Oh, it must be legit.
Oh, it's got to be correct. Okay. Now, they are big names. They have powerful interests. And now they want them gone. Who are these they who want Gutierrez and McDonald ejected from GVB and the multi-millions of public dollars it controls annually? Attorney Joseph McDonald and Attorney Charles McDonald of the firm McDonald Law Office. I'd have thought these guys had a farm.
No, it's a firm.
It's not. I guess they're not old enough to have a farm. And then they could be old. We could say old McDonald had a farm.
There you go.
Yeah, but as it is, young McDonalds have a firm. Yeah.
E-I-E-I-O.
Okay. Between March 8 and March 26, 2021, Gutierrez, the president of GEO and CEO of GVB, issued a request for proposal for communication services at GVB. It was published in the Post and on the GVB's website. The reason for the RFP procurement of communication services was the previous contract period was to expire. MS. I suppose you could pronounce it RIMS, which stands for, he pronounces it Rudder, but I'm going to pronounce it Rudder. Rudder Integrated Marketing Services. One thing about Rudder Integrated Marketing Services, they promise to keep you on course, Jose. Yeah, Rudder Integrated Marketing Services will keep you off the rocks and shoals. It's owned by Steve Rudder, won the previous communication services contract in 2017. The contract was for 1 year with 4 options to renew. According to GVB's audited financials for all but the final year of that contract period, the public paid RIMS $4,726,288.84. That's a pile of money for public relations. In fact, RIMS has been a GVB vendor since fiscal 2008, and from then until the audited financials of fiscal 2020, GVB has cut checks to the marketing company totaling $9,723,789.50. Wow. And here I am slaving away every day over a hot microphone, Jose. Yeah. This is according to the ledger of expenses GVB provided to Candid. Following services GVB issued through March 2021 was for another 1 year contract with 4 options to renew, conceivably worth millions of dollars again. Sometime in mid-late March 2021, I met formally with VVB Chairman Milton Morinaga to provide updates to GVB operations, COVID-19, and other matters. GVB Vice President Gerald Curtis Paris wrote in a sworn affidavit submitted to corruption investigators. Let's hold there and we'll come back to Gerald Curtis Paris.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
So here we are. We're going to wrap up the first half here in a minute or two, but I left off with GVB Vice President Gerald Paris. Jerry Paris wrote in a sworn affidavit submitted to corruption investigators on December 6, 2022. During that conversation, Chairman Morinaga disclosed that he was asked recently by GVB Board Treasurer Samuel Shinohara to meet at United Airlines, to which Morinaga agreed. Ho Yoon, Shinohara, Steve Rudder, and Ben Ferguson, GVB membership elected director, Paris wrote in his affidavit. According to RIM's 2017 proposal for the Communications Services Contract, Guam Sports Event, Inc., or GSEI, is a client of Rim, filed at the Department of Rev Tax. Rudder is a director of GSEI. Sam Shinohara and Ben Ferguson are also listed as directors and officers of GSEI, all 10 years since its May 12, 2014 date of incorporation. Shinohara, who runs the VB Board of Directors. The same board, according to a report of investigation compiled by attorney Joseph McDonald, public money to GSEI. The year GSEI was created. This GSEI corporation. Since 2014, GVB board directors, in some instances without conducting any to GSEI and its sponsor events, United Guam Marathon, Guam International Marathons, going back to 2014, RIMS provided public relations services for GSEI. So this all looks pretty sweetheart, doesn't it? The Visitors Bureau. The Visitors Bureau ponies up a lot of money to GSEI to run the United Guam, who is also a board member of GSEI. In 2018, during the tenure of then General Manager John Nathan DeKnight, emails among DeKnight, Ferguson, GVB Japan Marketing Manager Brian Bora, and Shinohara, now a board member of GVB, show Ferguson and Shinohara pushing for GVB funding for the 2019 United Guam Marathon. Brian, can we get this 18 regarding the funding agreement? Challenge is we need to start executing on these plans to get things going. Manager Pilar Laguana entered into an agreement with GSEI on April 5, 2020 for the United Guam, but included a force majeure provision. That is a contract clause that essentially allows for canceling because of the pandemic and the ensuing public health emergency lockdowns. But the payments to GSEI still were made. Of GVB payments to GSEI from February 11 through July 23, GSEI received 100 and this a little bit more.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The talks failed. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. Hollywood writers on strike in 1 minute after contract negotiations broke down.
The main sticking points are over pay and streaming residuals. The walkout is the first WGA strike in 15 years, with more than 11,000 television and film writers walking off the job.
Fox says Trace Gallagher, the strike will bring an immediate halt to shows including late-night talk shows, soap operas, and daytime talk. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen notifies Congress the U.S. may default on its debt as early as June 1st if Congress fails to raise the debt ceiling. President Biden's invited 4 congressional leaders to a White House meeting on May 9th to hopefully bridge the issue.
Congress must act. It is their constitutional duty. We've been very clear on what we will negotiate about, which is appropriations and the budget.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, Republicans refuse to raise the country's borrowing power without a spending cut. A default would be the first in U.S. history. And the Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates Wednesday by 1/4 percentage point as it tries to curb stubbornly high inflation. That increase will make it harder on consumers to borrow money. And this as another bank failed Monday. Federal regulators seized First Republic Bank and agreed to sell it to J.P. Morgan Chase. Oklahoma deputies say they ended the search for two missing teenagers after finding 7 bodies Monday near the town of Henriette.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call it.
And legendary singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot, best known for classics such as The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, died Monday. He was 84 years old. America's listening to Fox News.
Express yourself into the groove. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusatani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagatnya location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
News.
Republican Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin tells the Wall Street Journal he does not plan to run for president in 2024, at least for now, but he seemed to leave the door open to change his mind. This as South Carolina GOP Senator Tim Scott teases a big announcement will happen on May 22nd.
We will have a major announcement and you're going to want to be there.
It's anticipated he will make official his candidacy for president just weeks after forming an exploratory committee. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
A Montana transgender lawmaker, Zoe Zephyr, is suing the state,
asking to be allowed to return to the Montana House floor after the Democrat was reprimanded last week for what her colleagues called hateful comments, that they'd have blood on their hands for voting to ban child sex change treatments in Montana and for encouraging protests that disrupted proceedings, with riot police making several arrests.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. Lawmakers passed that bill and the governor signed it. The city of Virginia Beach, Virginia declares a state of emergency after an EF3 tornado damaged as many as 100 homes and businesses Sunday. Thousands will fill central London streets on Saturday for the coronation of King Charles III.
The Mall is already alive with anticipation for an enormous state occasion. That's the wide red road from Buckingham Palace on which King Charles and Queen Camilla will parade to and from the coronation, the prime spot for onlookers.
We're doing it for king and country.
John Luffrey, one of a handful to set up camp. He arrived over a week before the big day.
Coming past here in a gold coach, wearing our crowns, we'll be waving our flags.
He's got a foldable bed and bags of food to get him through to Saturday. In London, Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
And modest losses for stocks on Monday. The Dow lost 47 points. The Nasdaq fell 14. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
This spring, shop on over to the Micronesia Mall and enter to win. Redeem receipts totaling $10 or more. Scratch for a chance at instant prizes from Burger King or Foot Locker. Or receive a grand prize entry form for a drawing on May 6th for a chance to win a new Toyota Tacoma 4x4 SR5 off-road package with lift kit from Atkins Scroll Toyota. 10 lucky runners-up will get $250 gift certificates from Goodwin Travel and Tour for tickets to Philippine Airlines. Shop more, win more at the Micronesia Mall. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
place here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. More services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
So, Jose, you do it every day. I don't think you need my prompt.
Online by going to thepoint.gu, the official website of this radio station. There you'll find the picture of the Point's WhatsApp at 671-797-8255. And you too can become a part of the I'm a Tailgater Tall Tales Rogues. Yeah, we keep getting them in.
And I got to tell you, if you're on the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery, the bragging rights are, according to Ledger of GVB payments to GSEI for February 11 to July 3, 2020, Shinohara followed up on payments to GSEI with GV Financial Controller. McDonald's investigation report states on June 4, 2020, Villanueva transmitted a schedule, returned the schedule to Ada and Shinohara with reference to proposed board resolution number 4 for the board's. Shinohara moved to approve the scheduled expenses, but the motion was tabled. The expenses pushed by Shinohara, while Shinohara members either are or were involved with GSEI and are or were clients of RIMS, which also is not the only one sickened by the board and its antics. The majority of the GVB Guam staff signed a petition in mid-February 2020, the month before the declaration of the state of public health emergency qualifiers on Guam. A few days later, on February 2020, emailed Shinohara after seeing the United Merit Guam position us to be consistent with our message and avoid an onslaught of immediate circus. I think there are negative repercussions on them as well. That said, my understanding is UGM is not allowing anyone from China to participate. And now this board of directors and so-called incestuous interests are gunning for Governor Gutierrez and attorney. Then at a board meeting Thursday, members voted to open up Gutierrez's job and the legal services contract currently held by McDonald's allegations to the Attorney General and Public Auditor. In our follow-up coverage, we will bring you more. I can't wait. Now, you do recall that Amanda Shelton, who was identified as the postponed an oversight hearing to deal with these very matters 6 minutes before the oversight hearing. Tom Fisher called out Shelton on the floor of the legislature saying, "Are you sure that you are the proper person?"
Can I add one more layer to that?
Certainly.
Most of us saw what happened at the Committee on Rules, the last Committee on Rules session, where Senator Shelton was Mayor Robert Hoffman. And she was the one that motioned to put him on the potential list when it failed the first time. Because I'm a member on this board of directors, and it remains to be seen what his intentions are going to be. And
Shelton comes whistling in at the end of the hearing, say, "Well, here I am." And one of the Democrats moved to reconsider all of the failed votes. And
I think the hearing already happened. It just wasn't
it happened.
Recorded or something, approved yet by the committee.
Yeah, the committee who said of Tydenko, "I haven't had the hearing yet, but I've talked with this guy, and he's a good guy. You're really going to like the other 10.
Oh, okay.
And Monty Mesa thought that he was going to be the 11th member. Monty Mesa thought he was the 11th, 10, not a majority. So if you scrape the paint and varnish off all of this stuff on, and some board members got the idea that they can pretty much steer this agency however correct and pure, it smells awful. It smells awful that these guys are on what
members are chosen.
Well, but going beyond that, okay, so there's nothing in the Organic Act on the board at the Visitors Bureau too, but don't tell anybody about GSEI.
Right.
Yeah. And
1983, 84?
Something like that.
Something like that. The beginning of the tourism, right, boom coming to the island. Again, it makes not just the past.
It has come forward that board members took it upon themselves to be mini-man resolution at a properly called and noticed meeting. So a director can't go walking out and stand in front of somebody's desk and say, "Hey, somewhere in those reports, there's mention that there's money that the Visitors Bureau board should collect." Council is always in a tough position with a board and commission. If I were in the legislature, I would say that no matter what the job council does, they all want to go different directions. Here you got 11. I mean, just the sheer numbers. They got enough to start to be right in the center of the decision-making process. And he should be able to say, "Time out, guys. If you do that, you're going to run across, advise that you not do that." "Yeah, but we want to do it, and it's good for tourism, and the people will like it, and we've always done it. Who the hell are you?" Just get a different lawyer and keep trying until you get the one that you want, right? Till you get the right advice. You like to put it on what you're going to eat, or you can't stand it. But you got to give Carl credit. He's not afraid of anything. Where we went through with the entire Catholic community, many of whom know exactly what was going on, found it out. Carl, you could still hear that whistle blowing, and of course they want to get rid of him. They don't. I missed it in the when I did the public law 36, 34 section of the agenda. Tomorrow there is a meeting p.m. This is a terrific news item all by itself. Confirmation hearing. First one, better known as the fixer from Pulp Fiction, the Wolf. Remember, Jose?
That's him.
So they tried McDonald. McDonald lasted about a month, and he was out of there. And then for a while, they fixed by that time. And that's when I reminded everybody of Warren Wolf from the Pulp Fiction movie. If your car is full of blood, now he's going to be on the board at the port. The better to bad-mouth talk show hosts, I suppose. No one who has ever held a position in an agency should ever serve on that agency's board. Want the the bureaucratic nepotism that is going, because when he states a proposition, the other board members who perhaps aren't as up on the operation of the agency as the former board, I'm going to vote along with him. It's not a good situation. And if I were in the legislature, I would vote Francisco G. Santos, Port Authority Board of Directors, former harbor master at the port. Not a good idea. Donald Weekley has been Mr. Democrat in Inalahan ever since. Pretty decent fellow. And this is the agenda for the roundtable hearing. Reconciliation of GBB, the tail on Joe McDonald, right? Yeah. Or I can envision this. Let's say the two will come at 3:34. Interesting stuff.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Express yourself into the groove. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusatani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
Okay, next on the card here is Calamity Jane versus Fisher, which is a condition, as you are, a continuation of Fisher versus babies. You recall Fisher introduced a bill that he says calls for a referendum on abortion. And it's that and a whole lot more. And I'm going to spend a lot of time going through that Fisher's bill and pointing out what a propaganda instrument it actually is. But it looks like what Fisher wanted to do is this. You know, a lot of folks are not going to take the time to read his bill. Some will read the summary in the paper. Most probably won't have any familiarity with it at all. So you'll have a lot of people who say, I don't know what to do about that referendum. And somebody will lean on him. The pro-abort crowds will say, don't vote for it. It's not a good deal. Or they'll say, do vote for it. The antis won't be as forceful, etc. And a lot of people will vote for it without really understanding what's in it. And I suspect that that's what Fisher's banking on, an inadvertent approval of his referendum. But he's got two purposes here. By loading his bill up with all of this pro-abortion jurisprudence, he probably figures doing that a really virtue signal to all of the abortion. Working for Tom Fisher, does it? And I went through this yesterday, and Vanessa Williams, every other choice in our lives, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. The intent of the bill, it states, many of our citizens believe abortion services are essential care. Quote, abortion is health care. Have Calamity Jane, the BWA director of the Bureau of Women's Affairs, so they could be named plaintiffs in an ACL suit to enjoin the whole chemical abortion business. That's to talk about Williams. All right, I'll break here for a second and come back to Calamity Jane. Go ahead, Pete Scrow.
Bob, since I wrote the Heartbeat Act, she never has cited one case, not one case. She's called her or.
It's not that easy, Pete.
Well, I got to say something. The people of Guam need to know, because when it was first written, I wrote it as a referendum. It wasn't written as a bill, but on amending the referendum and initiative laws so that our people can pass laws easily, because the Heartbeat Act, which is a lot of pages, which the governor didn't even like. The Texas Heartbeat Act, which I didn't copy, it has Supreme Court cases in that severability clause for them. History of Guam, and it's the first time in the nation where 37 states have followed Texas, because for the first time in the history of our country, Bob, you're a great attorney. You know how much it's going to cost somebody to hire a lawyer, file a complaint, go through with 27 million people. A doctor who wanted to be sued couldn't even find one resident of Texas out of 27 million people. We have what, Bob, you just mentioned it, about 160,000? Nobody. But they fool the people again. So what I want, and I'm hoping for, is that they'll be mission. Before you can even get, maybe it's 9,000 signatures on a petition, the people getting the petitions have to have a police clearance and a court clearance. And then you got to have publications of summaries of what it's all about and distribute it throughout the island. It's not easy. It should be easy, but it's not. Skinner was appointed as the first, local governor by President Truman. He was consulting with the Navy, and back then they decided that no, it's too far from the populace of Guam. So they picked Oka Point. Mr. Perez and Governor Skinner, Mr. Perez never wanted to sell Oka Point. I was his attorney when he was still alive. He never wanted to sell it. It filed with land management, and I was happy to learn today that the family every year thereafter to today filed the same notice. That notice should be, the government of Guam should be aware of that, because if land management keeps accepting it, then it must be a good document. And the same document I drafted to help the Ancestral Lands Commission when they wanted to somehow preserve a claim in the future. So this is not a magic thing. I just found out today there's going to be a public hearing about Oka Point. I think the speaker should first talk to the family, the Perez family, because Mr. Perez was promised for compensation because Gov Guam didn't have money back then, equipment that was in Saipan. It was surplus military equipment. The Department of the Army said to Governor Skinner, yes, you can take this, give it to Mr. Perez. We don't need it anymore. But when it came time to ship it to Guam, the Navy decided that they could still use it. Mr. Perez never got paid anything for Oka Point, nothing. And when I was his attorney, Bob, and you can appreciate this, I understood the statute of limitations. We went and tried to find a political solution. It was Senator Angel Santos that helped us. We lost by one vote. One vote. It's already proven. I mean, Governor Skinner's affidavit, and I did send it to Jose. You don't even have to read what I wrote at the beginning. If you just read Governor Skinner's affidavit, it all comes back to Bob, location for a hospital and ancestral land takings. Because there is such a thing in selecting a site. It's called the emergency site response calculation. You don't just pick a site and say, oh, that's good. There's people that time ambulances. When we picked certain properties, Air Force was timing by stopwatches, Air Force ambulances from the gate.
Hey, Pete, I got to head for Churchill Downs, but we started out talking about Vanessa Williams, and we went kind of a far afield there, but I want to come back to Vanessa Williams, and you said she's not a legal expert if you have the right degree of righteousness.
Just last point. If Vanessa's listening, can you cite one Supreme Court case?
Vanessa presents her position, not a one that's legally correct, but righteous.
That's correct.
Thanks for calling, Pete.
targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Ang inyong bangko na tapat sa serbisyo. Tunay na kaibigan at handa para sa inyo. Ang bangko ng kinabukasan, laging maaasahan. Pan Pacific, where others but branches we place through.
So here we go. Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. 6 furlongs. I cross the finish line and wrap up another issue of Tall Tales. So I talked a little bit about Vanessa Williams, and Vanessa Williams saying we abortion is health care, and we shouldn't have to have a referendum to decide we need health care. Calamity Jane picks up on the same song. Director on You Decide abortion bill. Public should not have a vote on someone's personal health care decision. I agree with that.
So do I.
100%. You know, if I want to get a nose job, I don't expect that there has to be a public vote on that, right? Yeah.
Not at all. And you wouldn't want to hear me say, but I encourage you to get that nose job. Because it wouldn't be right.
Public debate. Now, some of the things, my conduct, yeah, that could be subject to public debate. If I come along and say I have a AR-15 rifle at home, and I'm going to take that AR-15 rifle downtown and shoot 5 people with it, yeah, then my conduct should be subject to at least public debate.
But stress relief is a part of your health care, Bob.
Yeah, I suppose. But anyhow, public should not. Hirayama, women's reproductive rights are at the center of new legislation. Women's reproductive rights, KOA.
No, they are not.
Yeah, no. Any vote on whether abortion access should be protected under Guam law. Fisher announced his, quote, Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Should we enshrine these in Guam laws? This is a quote from Fisher. Enshrine these in Guam laws. I don't have a uterus. So little known, I don't have a uterus. Why am I controlling the uterus of someone else?
Well, you're right. Why is he?
Yeah, well, I didn't know that he was, but I wonder who it is.
Who they are?
Yeah, who they are. Why am I making decisions on how a woman can use her body?
Again, not an incorrect statement.
Yeah, you shouldn't be making a statement about how a woman can use her body. That should be strictly up to the woman, not to you, even if you're a senator. Even if you're a lawyer. Rather than a referendum, the Reproductive Justice Initiative, Famalawan Rights, supports lawmakers pushing for pro-choice legislation. Like Bureau of Women's Affairs Director Jane Flores is against the proposal. Quote, you decide would mean an individual decides on their own personal health care, she said. If he wants a vote, it means the community decides on someone's personal health care issues. The community should not have a say in someone's personal private health care decisions. So we don't need the community to vote on this. She adds the bill is unnecessary as abortion is legal under Guam law. Fisher said statute only provides for a limited right to abortion, arguing that the bill is essential.
Bob, I thought they were talking about reproductive rights. All of a sudden they interjected abortion into them?
All of a sudden abortion pops into the conversation.
Bob, I want to talk about soup today.
Uh-huh.
So when I grill my steak, I make sure that the
Like walnuts, almonds, some soup I don't like very much. Like I don't care much for Brazil nuts.
And I agree. Being a person with no uterus,
yeah,
that is something
It certainly affects the
with the correct language. I'm not just talking about semantics. I'm talking about definitions.
Yep.
And it shows the intent of people like this to try to push something over the public without being truthful about something and being direct. Just say what you are about and stop using these euphemisms to make it seem like you're talking about something grand. In China,
this is not a reproductive rights issue, and no one ever accused Tom Fisher of having a uterus. And
well, maybe someone accused him of wearing panties, but never having a uterus.
Well, you know, this not having a uterus thing, back before these woke eras that would call that kind of talk bullying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can't.
I apologize.
You can't say things like that. In fact, if Tom Fisher had said that, he'd get criticized anyhow for saying, I'm going to add that into great pronouncements right up there with, it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives.
It's a good declaration.
It is. It's right up there with Mauricio Mayer, Ernest Chargaloff. What's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Things you cannot argue with, right? Okay, so I'm going to go into this bill number. Whoa. Yeah, it's bill number 106-37. And there's legislative intent. For many years, at least since 1973, regard to the question of abortion. Now, that's factual. That's true. This discussion, while ancient in nature, reached the center of American political discourse when in January 1973, the Supreme Court of the U.S. held that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, which protects a pregnant woman's right to an abortion, not a fundamental right. There was a constitutional right springing from what's called substantive due process. Substantive due process did not create fundamental rights. The court also held that the right to abortion is not absolute and must be balanced against. Since that landmark ruling, the issue has not been resolved and discussion has grown ever more divisive. On June 24, 2022, the Supreme Court issued a decision that overturned as the Constitution does not mention it and the right was not, quote, deeply rooted in to regulate access to abortion. By this submission, the legislature enfranchises all people then is the following question, Section 2. The Guam Election Commission, subject to the provisions of law, shall put to the voters the question described in Section 3 et sec. Infra of this act. Et sec. Law and Order notebooks. Sec means et sequentis, which means and following. Infra is the opposite of supra. Supra means above, infra means below. Of this act, the question shall be submitted during the 2024 general election. Vote for yes or no, or if you vote both yes or no, your vote will be invalid and will not be included Health Protection Act of 2023, as recited herein and below, be enacted into law. That is not a good forum for a referendum when you consider that the bill that so, you know, you're going to get a lot of people who kind of do the coin flip on this. They're not going to be making enlightened decisions because the question that's asked is too complicated.
And misuse of protection. It's what do they call it? An oxymoron?
Well,
it's an oxymoron of a title.
The concept is oxymoronic.
They're not truthful.
Yeah, so you're going to expect someone in the voting booth to read 9 pages, and this is heavy-duty writing. This is thick stuff. You know, it focuses that you need to make in order to determine exactly what it says.
You know, every day that we use software, and I know we're coming close to the end of the show, there's something called TOS, Terms of Service. And a lot of people don't even read it, and they just check mark it, I agree.
Yeah.
This is what this bill is.
That's what I always do, Jose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I've got a few seconds left here until, yeah, there we go. Time for me to say...
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
It could happen by June 1st. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. That's the day Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the U.S. may default on its debt obligations. If so, it would be the first in U.S. history.
Leader Chuck Schumer refuses to entertain a vote, although the package will move through committees as Democrats try to poke holes in what the White House calls a MAGA wish list.
We pay our bills, and we should do so without reckless hostage-taking from some of the mega Republicans in Congress.
Senate Democrats want to raise the debt limit without conditions, but it's not clear Leader Schumer even has the votes to do that. Instead, Democrats and Republicans are launching attack ads in a game of who will blink first.
Fox's Aisha Hasni. President Biden invited the top 4 congressional leaders to meet with him on May 9th to discuss the pending crisis. Now, this as the cost of borrowing money keeps going up. The Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates Wednesday and then signal a pause. Rolling Stone calls him a genius-level singer and songwriter.
If you could read my mind.
Gordon Lightfoot, who wrote that and other classics, died yesterday. A family representative says the 84-year-old legend died in a Toronto hospital.
He was born in Ontario and studied music in California, producing a blend of folk and rock and pop like the Canadian Railroad Trilogy, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and
Sundown, you better take care.
Bob Dylan thought of Lightfoot as a mentor and once said, "I can't think of any Gordon Lightfoot song I don't like." Jill Nato, Fox News.
And Hollywood writers are now on strike, their first in 15 years as they push for better pay in the streaming era. They plan to hit the picket lines later today. America's listening to Fox News.
Artificial intelligence may be the technology of the future, but is it a threat to humanity? Or could it spark the next chapter of American innovation and dominance? All this week, the Fox News Rundown podcast takes a closer look at the rise of AI. Each day on the podcast, we will be joined by experts, Fox News digital reporters, and special guests as we ask about the possibilities and dangers of AI. Listen and download at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. From from the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, it's Will Kane, co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. Join me as I share my thoughts on a wide range of topics, from sports and pop culture to politics and business. With the help of newsmakers and personalities, I will provide you my free, unfiltered, uncancelable opinion on the hottest topics in America.
The Will Kane Podcast. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts. America is listening to Fox News.
Portions of I-55 in Illinois won't reopen until later today as crews work to clear the massive and deadly 72-car and truck pileup.
High winds blew dirt from nearby farm fields across the highway, leading to poor visibility. Multiple vehicles crashed in the north and southbound lanes within a 2-mile stretch. 6 people killed, more than 30 victims transported to hospitals.
Fox's Nate Rogers with Fox 32, Chicago. A judge in Missouri blocked it, but the state's attorney general says he will keep defending the ban on gender-affirming care.
The case will play out in court, but enforcement of Missouri Republican Attorney General Andrew Bailey's emergency rule is temporarily blocked. That requires 3 years of documented gender dysphoria as well as mental health treatment. Patients would be tested for autism, and minors would be also screened for social media addiction, all before receiving sex change treatments. Bailey issued the rule following an investigation that he says showed children receiving experimental sex change treatments without informed consent. Opponents call the rule discriminatory, saying the Attorney General sidestepped the legislative process. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
People in Oklahoma stunned by the discovery of 7 bodies in a rural area near Henrietta. The bodies were found as deputies searched for 2 missing teens.
It's been really hard. It's been a tough day. Everybody's just so sad. It's a tragedy. It really is. This small of a community, it's just horrible.
Those people at a vigil last night. Investigators say the 2 missing girls and a registered sex offender, Jesse McFadden, were among the bodies. He was scheduled to go on trial yesterday on charges connected to child porn. And a high-profile Palestinian prisoner died in Israeli custody today after a 3-month hunger strike. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Hey there, folks. It's me, KFC's Extra